welcome to This Week in Comics. As you can see, I'm dressed up in some patriotic garb, and that's because this week is the 4th of July, our great nation's birthday, and I'm just trying to celebrate it in whatever way I can. This week, I wanted to go over, or this last week, I guess, a couple comics came out that I wanted to go over that I found to be a bit disappointing, unfortunately, and I wanted to touch on exactly why that is, and it leads into a video I've been saying I want to make, which is problems with Marvel and DC. The two books I wanted to touch on are Absolute Power Ground Zero. It's the lead-in book for DC's new event comic coming up, Absolute Power. It's supposed to be 4 issues, written by Mark Waid, art by Dan Mora. The artist is awesome, but the writing so far, from what I read in this issue, is somewhat lackluster. The other book I wanted to cover is The Spectacular Spider-Men, a book by Greg Weisman and Humberto Ramos. Once again, love the artist, but unfortunately the writing is really falling flat for me. It's a book that features both Peter Parker and Miles Morales, the first book doing so since Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2, I think, was the last one that did it, but it's kind of falling flat in addressing the fact that these two characters now coexist within the same universe. Aside from that, there are a couple other comics I picked up this week, including G.I. Joe, Redcoat, William of Newbury, and Rook Exodus, which I wanted to cover as well at some point. I'm kind of waiting for the Ghost Machine comics, for more of them to come out to cover them. Not that I'm not incredibly excited about them and that I don't think they're great. I think everybody should go and pick them up if they have the chance. But I kind of want to be able to cover them as a bit more of a big story, and that's just simply because there's not tons of it right now. It's the same is the case with William of Newbury. That one, it's a 4-issue limited series that came out recently. It's really cool. I think it's been really fun so far. It seems like it's really good for kids to read even, and that's really nice because you don't get that a lot in comic books these days. So that's cool, but I want to wait for all of it to come out to cover it, just so people have the chance to enjoy it on their own. Not that they're going to be watching my videos. Not that that would ruin it. But aside from that, I just want to get into those two comics. I guess there's G.I. Joe as well. And honestly, I need to do a lot of research on that before I can speak on it with accuracy and confidently. Like, I think it's on 307 right now, and that's just 7 issues that I've picked up, and honestly, I don't understand what's going on entirely within the universe. I need to do a lot more research. There's really good, like, writing just so far as, like, it's following, heroes versus villains, and that's easy to follow, but there's a lot of lore within this universe that I don't understand yet that I need to research, which I would be excited to talk about at some point. Absolute Power Ground Zero. So as I said, this is the opening book for DC's new event comic coming up, written by Mark Waid, art by Dan Mora, and after reading this, I don't think I'm going to be picking up the event book, which is all I really pick up from DC these days anyway, so I find that kind of disappointing. In this book, we follow as Amanda Waller builds a sort of anti-Justice League. Not that they're the opposite of the Justice League, it's more like they're going to be robotic counterparts to the Justice League, but it's in order to fight the Justice League. So we follow her as she gets a hold of Failsafe and turns it back on, which is a Batman villain from a comic arc that happened recently. Some Amazobots and Brainiac. So basically, it seems like it's going to be a big kind of robot clash book, and the main baddie is going to be Amanda Waller, obviously, which I kind of find silly just because I think her time as being a villain, it's kind of long over. They've really built her as being a sort of anti-hero, almost, in that, not that she's behaving in her own interest, but she's behaving in the interest of the American government, per se. And it's not that I'm opposed to bad stories about the American government. I'm not the biggest fan of them myself all the time, although I love our nation, obviously. Mainly the people. But it's just, I feel like her recent arc, as in the last 20 years, has been that she's not really the bad guy. She's kind of somebody who's working alongside the heroes at times. Maybe, they have common interests, but sometimes those interests don't match up, so they clash, but they're not like really against each other. So I'm not sure if I like that direction. And then the whole failsafe thing, I picked up those Batman comics. I tried to jump back into Batman reading those, and I stopped picking up Batman again. I got 4 issues of it, and it was mainly for the Joker backstory that they built up, which wasn't too bad. But then they introduced the whole failsafe thing too, and it just became, yeah. So it's not exciting to see that character coming back. And not only that, the whole Amazo thing, I mean, I've just seen plenty of Amazo. I know what's going to happen. The Amazo bots are going to mimic the heroes. There's probably going to be a specific Amazo bot for each one. And like I said, an anti-Justice League. So at the end of the comic, we get a preview of the first issue of Absolute Power, which it's just like 3 pages, and it shows these robbers, these petty thieves getting away with some jewels or something, and then Superman, flying over them, hey, stop there. And then one of them shoots him, and Superman starts to fall out of the sky rather than the bullet bouncing off of him. It harmed him. And this is just another thing, kind of like the Amazo bots. How many times have we seen this? Especially in the past 10 years, where it's like Superman's life is in peril. And that's the way that they display that this is a big deal. Like, it's not a big deal until Superman's almost dead, but that happens all the time. It's just kind of getting old. I'm somewhat tired of all this. But aside from that, like I said, I'm not going to be picking up this book moving forward, unfortunately, after reading it, just because it doesn't seem like it's going to be really anything worthwhile. I mean, no different from the failsafe thing. He's already been defeated once. He's going to be defeated again. Superman's not going to die. He's going to come back by the end and help the heroes save the day. He's probably going to be the linchpin of it all. Batman already doesn't have powers, and it looks like this is being billed as the heroes' powers are going to be taken from them. And yeah, it's just like it's going to get wrapped up. It's 4 issues. Doesn't seem like it's really that much. Spectacular Spider-Man by Greg Weisman and art by Humberto Ramos. So the 4th issue of this series just came out, and after reading the first book, I was already kind of uneasy with how the story was going, but after picking up this one, I'm just to the point where I'm going to stop reading this book. It's just very boring. The writing is not very good at all, and that's no offense to Greg Weisman. I've heard a lot of great things about him. He created the Gargoyles, and he did a lot of other work on some 90s projects, which are really big, and kudos to him. I have nothing against the guy personally, but his work on Spider-Man just is not hitting for me. It is very boring, and the villains he's introducing are just silly, and they're in this last issue they did something similar to what Absolute Power is doing, which is just using these very old tropes. And the trope they're using in this one is the heroes are in a sort of alternate reality where they're living out their dreams. And all it reminded me of was the Mercy Plants from the Justice League. Or, well, there's the Green Lantern comics, and then there's the Justice League cartoon as well, where they hook onto the heroes, Superman in particular, in the cartoon.
I fashioned a prison that you couldn't leave without sacrificing your heart's desire. It must have been like tearing off your own arm.
He gets transported to a life where he lived on Krypton, and it's the perfect life. And, eventually he sees through the ruse, busts free, and burn! Everything's good, and they're doing this, and there's a little bit of a switcheroo in there that when the heroes bust free, then they go and fight some androids, and then they're the androids that look like each other, and so then they see each other and they start fighting, which, ooh-wee. But, you know, it's just kind of like there's there's not really good character development within the story, for starters. Like, what we're learning about Peter and Miles over the course of this story has been very boring, in my opinion. And part of it has been like this way of, I don't even know what they're doing to Peter Parker in this book, but I definitely don't like it. It's like they're trying to just turn him into some boring old sitcom guy. Like, the start of the book is like a running theme throughout the book so far is he just wants to be a regular at the coffee shop, just the old regular. And it's like that, like, why? Like, he's Spider-Man. He's the coolest guy in the neighborhood. He has plenty of friends around him. I guess I just don't get it. It's this silly, like, sitcom-y thing, which I just don't think, it's not working for me. And basically no different from a lot of the Spider-Man projects that have come out recently, which I've talked about in another video. They're not for me. And there's a reason why these things are problematic. Like, aside from the story and everything, it's just, I've talked about it. When there's 8 Spider-Man titles, it's very hard for any of them to be good, aside from maybe one of them. And the only good one right now is Ultimate Spider-Man. So I'm definitely going to stop picking up this book as well. And that's just unfortunate because I love Spider-Man. He's my favorite character. He was the first comic book I picked up. I picked up a double-sided comic from the Kroger that had Ultimate Spider-Man on one side and then the Amazing Spider-Man by J. Michael Straczynski. I think it was number 32 at the time. And it's like the one where he's a teacher on the cover. I'll put it up on the screen. And yeah, that character was my introduction to superheroes, so I love him. And it's just very sad to see the way he's been treated recently. And I really just hope to God that they can find a way to turn this around in the 616 universe. Otherwise, they should just burn it all up and restart with the Ultimate Universe, honestly. So, as stated, I'm going to be making some more videos. I'm probably going to make one on G.I. Joe here soon. I'm going to cover some lore just to catch myself up, do kind of a research video, show people maybe how it is I'm doing my research, a lot of Wikipedia, by the way, and, you know, really lay out the sources so you can go find it for yourself. And then perhaps after that I'll be able to do some diving into the story that's coming out so far, because it is very exciting. And one of the really cool things about the book too is all the covers are by Adam Kubert so far. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I could totally be mistaken, but he's a great artist. He did a lot of work on a lot of stuff that's come out from DC, especially in the past few years, but he's done a lot of Marvel work as well. And he has a sort of timeless look to his art, similar to, in my opinion, kind of a John Romita Sr. work, and even John Romita Jr. to some degree. I know a lot of people have been complaining about his recent work, but I don't have those same complaints. I think if I were to make a criticism of his recent work, it'd be that he needs to either get somebody else to ink his work or somebody else to color his work. Those new vibrant colors, the computer coloring that they're doing on his work just isn't doing it justice. His does a lot better with flat colors, not the really glossy stuff. And if they are going to do the glossy stuff, it needs to be very toned down, similar to kind of what it was in the Avengers that he was doing with Bendis. That stuff, I think, looked a lot better than what he's currently doing on Amazing Spider-Man. And like I said, I think that's just mainly due to the other people he's working with, and that might be that he's requested that change too. But again, I think it's kind of a timeless look. It's cartoony. Maybe there's too many lines in there, but, you know, if you've ever watched any of his art videos, I really respect the guy, so that's my own personal take on him. But aside from that, Adam Kubert, I think he has a similar appeal in that it just has a timeless look to it. It very much brings out a good human figure, but it also has the good kind of comic booky feel to it at all times. So that's one really exciting thing about that book. Another thing is, I wanted to say before going, I put kind of a clickbaity title on this video on purpose, and it's kind of not to manipulate the audience at all 6 people who watch the videos, but it's simply to try and understand the algorithms behind YouTube. There's a very clear algorithmic thing happening behind the scenes that I don't entirely understand. I made the title so as to kind of get some data back on my own end to see what's going on. And, you know, I'm not doing it so that I can get more views on my videos, honestly. I don't care about that so much. The main thing is so that I can understand some of the videos that I'm getting on my YouTube feed too, and I'll be gladly willing to share exactly what I'm experiencing with anybody watching the videos as well. But aside from that, thanks for watching the videos. This one was a lot looser than some of the ones I've done in the past, and part of that's because I can't read with these sunglasses on very well. And a lot of how I do these videos is reading it off of a legal notepad that I write all my notes on so that I can kind of keep track of what I'm talking about and where I'm going. But, you know, this might be more fun anyway. So anyway, have a good day and happy 4th of July, everybody.